Every hunter dreams of sitting in their stand on a crisp November morning and calling in that buck you've been patterning all year. Those same hunters also have nightmares of seeing that stud buck, giving him a grunt to see if you can get him into range, and then he just flicks up that tail and takes off. I've always thought that at best you have a 50-50 shot of successfully calling in a deer. Even if you do everything right, you still can't be sure that that deer, that wild animal, is going to react the way you hope they do. So even though I'm a bit of a pessimist and I don't think that the odds are really that good for you to call in a buck, there are things you can do to kind of help push those odds a little more into your favor. It is very, very, very easy to drop those odds to nearly zero. So in this video, I'm going to go over 3 beginner deer calling tips to help you push those odds into your favor. But before I get into the tips, do me a favor, and if this is your first time on my channel, hit that subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell icon so you can be notified every time I upload a video. And the first beginner deer calling tip is you have to know when to use them. Rattling on opening morning of bow season is not going to work. I know you're excited, but you have to know when to use them. The same goes for your grunts and your snort wheezes. Rattles, grunts, and snort wheezes are most effective toward the end of the pre-rut all the way through the post-rut. Use them when bucks' testosterone levels are starting to rise and they're trying to sort out that dominance. Fawn bleats will work all season long because of a doe's built-in maternal instinct. It can also work to call in a buck during the rut because that doe that comes to investigate that fawn bleat may have a buck trailing her. And the second beginner deer calling tip is make sure you actually know how to use it. Now I know deer vocalizations aren't as complicated as turkeys, but you should practice them before you go out into the woods. Don't just open that package of whatever call you bought and think you're good to go. Some hunters might be able to do that, but if you're a beginner, just assume you're terrible at it. Practice at home and make sure you can make realistic deer sounds. Watch YouTube videos of real deer fighting, grunting, snort wheezing, and then try to mimic those sounds. If you can make your grunt calls, your rattles, sound like those videos, like real deer fighting, you are well on your way to being at least decent at deer calling. On my last deer calling video I did, probably 3 years ago, a lot of people were asking why I didn't demonstrate those calls or rattles on the video. And the reason is because I don't feel it's as productive to learn how to use a deer call by trying to mimic somebody using a deer call. I think it makes more sense to watch videos of actual deer making those sounds and then try to mimic those. There are plenty of videos out there from different people who have the specific call that you have. So if you want to learn how to use your specific deer call, go watch those videos. I will also put links down in the description to videos that I've found helpful of real deer making real deer sounds. That way you can go to the ones I use if you prefer, or you can just search deer grunts or deer rattles or something like that, and you'll be able to find plenty of videos. And once you've learned how to use your specific deer call, you've practiced and you can make somewhat realistic sounds, you need to remember that you're not calling to deer a mile away. You're calling to deer that are over in the next holler, or maybe they're on the other side of a cedar patch. Something like that where the deer can't see you, or you're calling to a deer that you can only see a little bit of it or it's traveling away from you and you want to get its attention back. Don't do any calling when deer are looking right at you. And if you think deer can see you, just avoid it altogether. Not only will the movement probably give you away, but deer have a great ability of being able to pinpoint where sound comes from. Now, if you're blind calling, which means you're not calling to a specific deer that you can see, you want to call once every 20 to 30 minutes or so at most, and I would probably stick to the 30-minute side of that. Use some extra sense if this is the rut or getting close to the rut in combination with your grunts, and then make sure you watch downwind. I know it's not the most ideal place for a buck to come from, but a lot of times during the rut, bucks will circle downwind of a grunt call or a doe call to see if they can figure out what's over there. And with the rattles, you can be a little more louder and prouder with them. Work some grunts in with your rattle sequence, try to add a little realism to it, and just like with the grunts, watch downwind for a curious buck to come in. And the third beginner deer calling tip is it is perfectly okay to not use any calls. I know it's weird to have a tip in a deer calling video to be not to call, but it's a completely legitimate strategy. Like I said in the beginning, I'm pessimistic about calls. That doesn't mean I don't use them, but I think at best it's a 50-50 game. It's perfectly fine to sit there quietly and wait for something to come by. Trust that you're in the right spot at the right time. And like I said, you have to be in a good spot for you to sit there quietly and have a deer walk by, but you have to be in at least a decent spot for calling to work as well. Don't think that you absolutely have to use calls during the season to have success. There's many hunters out there that never touch a call and they do great. So that was 3 beginner deer calling tips. If you have any more beginner deer call tips you'd like to share, leave those down in the comments below. And hit that like button if you like this video, share it if you found it helpful, and make sure that you are subscribed so you can stay informed.